Capital Improvements Plan Committee. Joanne, be quiet, will you please? Make you out in the hall. At our, what we may be our final meeting until we make a presentation to the planning board.
Thank you.
Right, once we digest all the material that's being given to us. But while we're doing that, let's introduce ourselves, which I apologize we didn't do last time. So Richard, introduce yourself twice to make up for last time we didn't introduce you either.
Richard Manzo, Select Board Rep. Richard Manzo, Select Board Rep.
You can just do it once.
Olivia Welchert, Budget Committee Rep.
I'm Jim Raymond, I'm the acting chair.
Jay McInnes, School Board Rep.
Davis Allen, Community at Large Rep, and currently passer of the documents.
Great job.
Doing good job. Joanne, introduce yourself, please.
Deputy Planning and Economic Development Director.
Okay, before we dive into the matrix, we've had several minutes circulated. I'd like to approve them all, so we can just put them aside. Davis, can you make that motion?
I would so move that we approve the minutes before us.
Okay, and Olivia, will you second that?
Seconded.
Okay, are there any that aren't before us that we haven't approved?
I do not believe so.
Okay, so this is July
We
16.
have everything now.
Because we did not approve minutes last time. And
You should have July 30th and July 16th.
will you amend your motion to include both, Davis?
Yes, I will amend my
Olivia,
motion for
amend
July
your
16th
second?
and 30th.
So we
And I
can-
amend my second.
Okay, all those in favor of approving, I'll say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstains, motion carries. We'll wait for the reading thereof. Thank you. Joanne, tell us what we have you passed out in front of us today.
So you
That
have-
Davis passed out, so capably.
You have the updated matrix that Derek provided today, and there are only two minor changes. There was the addition of the Moose Club project for the sewer department, and there was a change in administration that was pointed out while Derek was doing his presentation at the first meeting.
Was it a number change or?
It was a number change. There was a typo on there,
And so,
and he changed that as well.
and Richard told us ahead of time that the changes, math, were not material to our overall. That's fair assessment, okay.
Yeah.
Okay, what we do, committee, typically, is we are recommending a plan to the planning board. We're not adopting, because we're a subcommittee of the planning board. And our choices are to amend the matrix as presented, or adopt it, or to make comments on it. There's three categories we can do. Because when it's presented to the planning board, there's usually a report written by the planning chair that goes with it. So for example, just picking as examples, there may be outlying year matters that we want to bring to the attention of everybody, but they're not really material to the immediate years and the immediate assessment. For example, new police station at some point, or pool. So we've sometimes in our report talked about those. We also, although we've said it's not our jurisdiction, is commented on fundraising, because there's a big difference in tax impact between an appropriation and a bond, for example. One has an immediate tax impact in that year. A bond is spread out over 20 or 30 years. So sometimes we want to bring that to the board's attention, that when we've looked at these projects, we're assuming or recommending a certain funding method to even out the tax impact. And the big example when we get to it would be the school. They've lumped everything in one year, but they're asking for a bond, which means the tax impact in that year isn't necessarily larger. It's just spread out over the next X years. Does that make sense, everybody? So, why don't we, if it's okay, we'll look at the town stuff first, because it has more colors in it, so it's more interesting. Dan, don't take offense. And see, we can either go down through department, or if you want, because we're all smarter people than the average, we can just take it as is, and we can adopt it. So I'll leave it to you how you'd like to attack this monster. Do you want us to just run down through each department and do a quick check on it and see if there's any comment?
Oh, are you looking at me to decide?
I'm looking at all of you, but you're the first person I happen to spot.
If there's, if there's not any major questions in any department, we could just take those and then maybe revisit the one, if anyone has any specific questions on any
Well,
departments.
why don't we just run through, just for the record, to show at each department, we'll just go down through quickly and say, are there any questions you have? So first, on the administration, and we see a bunch of projects in 2028 with different funding sources that seem to have got cut off to the right-hand column. We don't have on this, Joanne.
It's under this third column.
Oh, I
Funding
see, you got moved
sources.
over, I'm sorry, I'm not that bright, unlike the rest of you. Okay, so yeah, we're seeing funding sources that would explain or inform us on tax impact. Do you have any questions on the town administrator? That was relatively small.
Just a comment.
Yep.
I just wanted to point out what Joanne and I were talking aside for was the two corrections were to the amounts for the LCHIP grant on revenue for the Grassmere Town Hall, and then also the 80% grant for the NHDOT revenue grant for the bridge. Those were the two mistakes we caught.
Okay.
And those have been corrected.
Good. Thank you for catching those. Seeing no comments, further comments, then we'll move on to the police. The police, mainly on the vehicles, and then some building. And I didn't see an equipment item that, because I think they've updated things, so we're not, sometimes they do a lot of their specialty equipment in it. Any comments on the police? Well, I'm going to babble for a while. We know that in 2029, there is an amount for a new police station, which we admit may not be. And one of the discussions was, how much do you do on the existing station in the meantime? And they're proposing to move forward with certain, the locker room particularly. So I guess the discussion point would be, would we want that to be deferred in hopes and expectation that a new police station will arrive? Or do we go forward with the renovations to the current station for all the reasons that were stated by Eric, the police chief? Do you have a sense?
I mean, my inclination is the 250 is in 2028, right? So were it necessary, next year, we could always push it out later if the discussions seem to be leaning towards a new police station. But barring that, we should be expecting to have to do it, because I think most of us expect 2029 to maybe not be the year. Depends on the economic climate.
Economic and political.
You said it, not me, but yeah. Yeah, so I mean, my inclination is to leave it in there, keep it front and center for the sake of the police. If we're not going to do the bond, we do have to do the expansion they're describing.
Okay, Olivia?
I agree with Dan. I mean, I think as a budget committee rep, I think our priority with select board is making budgets that are going to pass and not continue this cycle into default. I think that we're gonna have to kind of play it by ear and hope that things improve in the next couple years, but know that with the pattern we've had for the last couple, it kind of makes looking forward a little unclear too.
Richard, is this a swap you want to wade into?
Yeah, there's no guarantees about the future. There's no guarantee the police department would ever pass. But even if it did, there's still construction time. And it's not like the locker room is the most major factor affecting retention at the police department, but it is a factor. So in that meantime, it needs some work. You know, we're working out of that building right now. We might as well work with what we have.
Okay, Davis?
I'll incorporate by reference your anecdote from the meeting with the police of when you were on the board for the YMCA and that similar situation, and with the comment that that anecdote has kept me up at night.
That anecdote was, just so you remember, on the Y board, we kept thinking we were gonna get a new Y, so we put off doing renovations, upgrades that were on an old building, and then dawned on the world we couldn't get a new Y, and we were way behind schedule, so I don't wanna do that again.
Yeah.
Because we know it, for the reasons Richard said, that the new police station may not happen for a while.
Very
So-
TBD.
Yeah, okay, so let's assume everybody's in agreement, thank you, that was good, those are good comments. Okay, I'm gonna move on then to fire. The difference between fire and police is the fire department's toys are much more expensive and come in less regular blobs. Which is why you have a CIP, a CRF. But there are some tax appropriations, you know, stuck in there. Any reason to revisit any of these? Well, I'll blab for a minute. There was discussion of the fire station upgrade at Hennardville, but it's gonna be the same discussion of, you know, Band-Aids versus major work, but they then seemed willing to recognize that major work would have to be deferred. The fire station at Turtle Hill Road over in my neighborhood is a something will have to be done with that, but there's no immediate plan, so we don't have to grapple with it right now. So that's something in the future. Anybody else have anything at all cogent to say on like what I just said?
I think it looks pretty flat through 2031, and then, yeah. I mean, I'm inclined to leave it as is, because the immediate future is relatively flat. I do believe that the Station 2, we're gonna have to decide whether we're gonna hang out there long-term or not, and this is really the only way to do that.
Okay, everybody in agreement? Good, thank you. Okay, Public Works, the big issue here was not the equipment per se, but the way to pay for it. So the question for us as CIP, is that something we want to comment on, feel capable of commenting on, or is that at the select board level to decide how to pay? I'm going to look, I tend to be looking to Richie because he's on the select board, but look around the rest of you. I think as a board, we don't have to. If we have a comment, we may make it, but it's still, the equipment is what we're really focusing on. What are the capital needs? How it gets paid for is
Over there.
in the penumbra of our jurisdiction, but not in the, that's a Supreme Court decision where we just swayed, if you remember. So anyway.
Yeah, like you said, I mean, you could send a comment, in terms of the funding model, it's really, big picture, it's not gonna be a major difference in, expenses, but it lowers the maintenance cost of the equipment, and it keeps us from entering into this cycle where we're constantly behind and we're constantly just trying to grab one thing to ease some sort of the burden. But, you know, I would say other towns have had good success with this funding model. You know, Adam said his remaining piece of doubt is what happens if you don't own the equipment and then eventually this funding model doesn't pass and then you're kind of left with nothing. That's kind of my level of doubt too. You know, I would pretty much say that with pretty much anything. You know, if it's only digital, if it's only rented or something like that, and you don't own it, it can really fall through for you. But it's smart from an efficiency standpoint. We're not going to have trucks down all the time. We're not going to need to try to chase repairs or anything like that. There's a rental that will just be right there at DPW, not being charged by the hour while it just sits there, and then when you need it, goes into service and the clock starts running, they charge you by the hour for it. Honestly, I think by the hour might even be a lower rate than the per annum rate, but Yeah, that's all I would say.
Okay, so we know there's some risk of non-passage, but, and what you brought up, cost savings that we as a committee don't see, because we don't look at operational costs. I mean, they present it, tell us about it, but we don't see those numbers because we're looking at capital costs. But if they're offset, in a sense, by lower maintenance costs that
Right.
aren't on our spreadsheet, that's,
Yeah, and part of the goal here is actually to take the equipment from capital expenses to operating expenses. So when you say you see those savings on the operating expenses side, yeah, that's pretty much what the entire point of this is to use the capital side to ease the burden on the operations side.
I agree with his implementation portion as far as reliability and the costs or whatnot. And I say this as a member of this committee, not as a private citizen, but I do think it's worth making sure that everyone who considers these numbers understands that there are many communities around us that do not provide the level of service Goffstown does. And if budget is trying to decide between one thing or another, that they keep that in the back of their mind.
my historical view, it goes more with the road plan when we get there, is Goffstown used to have terrible roads. And then this back one time until Don Hambridge came and taught us that you gotta keep up your roads, and we're being downgraded on the rating because that's a liability, and you just incur that liability. So we've come a long way. I don't want to prolong the WIAG any, but the WIAG equipment, you know, for weight and stuff, we made the same change to rental because you always otherwise you always had old equipment that was breaking down, and that members didn't like it, so they went to a rental and replaced it, and the costs don't go up. But, you know, it's different between a weight machine and a dump truck, but it's still the same concept. But you got to commit to rental fees. Okay, any further, Olivia? You good?
I don't think so. I think my only concern would be what Richard had brought up and what Adam had mentioned of if it doesn't pass, how that leaves the town. Just because historically, over the last few years of volatility, the more life-saving departments have been prioritized over DPW and Parks and Rec. And they're, you know, when we look at the adopted budget for 2026 on CIP, there's nothing. So I hope that if we do go to a rental model, that it's recognized that that needs to be something that's continually funded rather than it being, we passed it in 2027, but maybe not 2028.
Richard and Joanne can probably comment on this much better than I. But we also have the road plan.
Right.
And the town unfortunately has been quite willing to defer, as I just said, to defer that. So that allows you an area of slippage if you don't get a budget passed, but I hope still allows enough money to pay your rental fees. You can put off a road for a little bit, not too long.
Yeah, well, the road plan is where we find all that type of funding anyway. So yeah, I mean, it's good to say it explicitly, but yeah, that you know, running that risk of having to dip into the road plan isn't something that I'm super thrilled about. But at the same time, you know, everything else is in alignment with this being a good move, and that's why I support it. I can't, you know, there's doubts with the model that we have right now. Like, we're in the situation that we're in right now because of the model that we're under, and we can't solve problems by just making the same decisions over and over again.
Right. And that
That's
part
a
of
fair
it, I very much agree with. Just-
Davis, you good?
No comment at this time.
Okay. Well, if there are none, let's assume the equipment vehicle side is okay. You see the bridge stuff and the road plan and culverts, which we've talked about, and I've expressed my views that it's capital you gotta keep up on. Galbraith is not everybody's favorite, economists point out. You can lower people's taxes to save money, but if your road, so they can buy Cadillacs, but if your roads fall apart, the Cadillacs are gonna fall apart, so they're not gonna be any further ahead, and you can apply that to town roads, so.
That's like I've always said, tax bills are expensive, but so are front ends and suspensions.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm gonna treat us as good on Public Works on this. Thank you. Parks and Rec, not much. The sports complex, and I guess there's a political assessment of, you know, what's the likelihood, because it's gonna rely on funding sources that may or may not occur, and so he's putting it out a ways. The big issue of the swimming pool has been taken off, and Rick's calling it a day for that. He's tried a few times, and they'll come back at some point, but
Yeah, I think
I get
that'll
that.
come to a head if it's
If
gonna
it
be
fails.
closed.
yeah,
Right.
so, but, we don't need that now. Any comments on Parks and Rec? Beyond that, okay.
I just want to say out loud, the part about the sports complex is, just like if the pool fails, that's become a problem. If Lions Field becomes
Yeah.
unavailable, the sports complex becomes a priority.
Yeah, and we don't know yet how
We
that's
don't.
gonna play, but
Right.
you take for granted some town facilities that suddenly you realize you don't control. Okay, let's move down to public library. Similar, they've had a major library renovation before and didn't pass, so they're doing more modest, let's say, maintenance stuff, which is prudent. Any comments on that?
Just like Nichols.
Okay, then the sewer's easy, because
Yeah.
taxpayers don't pay
Self-funded.
to use. It's self-funded by the ratepayers, so there is a cost that somebody absorbs, but it's not passed on generally to the taxpayers. And most of these are keeping up with it. Any comments on that? Okay, seeing none, I would entertain a motion to recommend the town matrix to the planning board with whatever comments we want to add. If somebody will make that motion.
I'd be willing to make that motion.
Second.
Okay, any further discussion? All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Okay, question, are there any comments we want to add? I think comments you made are pretty obvious. We don't need to, we don't
Yeah,
need.
right, and I'm gonna continue to make those comments myself
Yeah,
in
we don't-
in those other settings anyway.
We
so.
don't need to say the sky's blue if everybody can see that it's
Yeah.
blue, so. Okay, I'm gonna assume we don't need to. then. Okay, let's move then to the school. Dan, I'm gonna let you be the cheerleader or the bad guy or whatever you wanna be on this, but as you can see, the school board is still lumping from a funding basis, a large amount into 2020 and 29 as a bond, or it was going to be a lease or a bond, I'm not sure what it's evolved into, which I think our concern that we've expressed this year and last year is, what if it doesn't pass?
It's a concern that I would share with you, yeah.
Before we spread them out and on a ongoing basis, they put all their eggs in one basket, and I think might be worth making that comment. I'm hesitant to tread too much on the decisions by the select board and school board and how to run their shops, but I think that would be a fair concern.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's fair feedback, and, you know, speaking as a rookie on this committee, feedback I intend to share when I return to the school board.
I don't want to speak, as chair, I shouldn't be giving my views too much. I'm trying to summarize rather what the discussions that we have, so I don't want to suggest you all shouldn't have separate views. Please do. Davis?
I would agree that the lumping it into 1 year is difficult, but I'm at a loss at what we would even try to spread out and how we would try to spread it out at this time, because I don't know as well as others on this committee do about what the priorities are when, if we were to be shifting those things around.
Olivia?
I think from a budget standpoint, it's going to be hard for both budget committee members as well as voters to see everything lumped in the same year, but I hope what people do is pay attention to the priority number when making decisions as we go through the budgetary process, because I know there was a concern that projects weren't prioritized in an organized way at on other social media platforms and at meetings. So I hope that people take that into consideration, and I'm sure the school district has taken that into consideration as they've carefully made their CIP plan.
If you look at column D, department priority, our ranking system, we've often used that as the lower the number, this earlier in the years it's projected.
Right.
So they put everything as 2s and 3s because it can be put off for another year. But my assumption is those will be done over several years. When things we've seen in school, like Henry Bridge Road, you have to do it in the summer. You can't squeeze too many projects into the summer, so it's spread out anyway. So, I don't have anything more to say that's at all cogent. I can blabble, but I don't want to. Richard, do you?
No, I mean, it's good to keep in mind that there's a risk, like you said, putting all your eggs into one basket. But the thing is that a bond, it's not inherently good or bad. And with that in mind, there's not really any real practical reason not to lump everything into a single year, because all of the work is needed. And if it gets somehow voted down or something like that, it's just a year setback. It's something that we deal with all the time in municipal government. So,
Fair.
it's not too big of a risk, and it would be nice to get a lot of work done at once.
Yeah.
Actually,
Yeah, and I think going off what Richard said, I think both on the school side and the town side, a lot of these projects are things we're seeing year after year after year after year. Most of them aren't surprised. We all know the roofs need to be replaced. We all know that equipment needs to be replaced. Like, those are things. So, I mean, I'm hoping that we can balance that out. But at this point, it's repetitive. You know what I mean? It's the same capital projects that are like bare minimum what we need to run schools and town stuff. And it's been hard to do with the budgets that have been dealt to the town.
just because it's on a matrix in a certain year doesn't mean the school board can move it. They have the authority to move it up if there's an expenditure
Right.
that authorizes it. So, for example, if there's extra money in the budget, maybe that will happen. And they can move one of these projects to do it. So we're not stuck on this schedule. There's some flexibility, but from our capital planning, it's good to see where it would become.
That's a guiding document.
Yeah, we're not limiting their creativity. Okay, anything else of great wisdom to say about the school? A lot of buildings, none of them new, so it's cost.
Yeah.
Okay, let's treat that as, okay? Okay, I would entertain a similar motion then.
I'll make a motion to recommend the school district CIP plan.
Second.
Second, all those in favor? Aye. Opposed, abstention, motion carries. Thank you. Those are good comments, you guys are good. Which means we're gonna put you on committee next year.
Congratulations.
Tim is the chair, so it's up to him to do a report. Sometimes the report is just changing the names from the prior years. So I may or may not do much with it. When I was chair, we would make a presentation to the planning board where each of you would be assigned a department to present, so one person isn't doing the talking. Tim did that last year, didn't like it as much, but I'm gonna assume he's gonna do it again this year. So let's think, who can present which? And I guess, question for Dan and Richard is, because you're on boards, do you want to be presenting, for example, the school, or would you rather pass that off to somebody else so you don't have to be, playing the role of school board representative? There's no right or wrong, it's just, some people have said, yeah, maybe I have positions in my board role that I don't want to be espousing in my CIP role, so, but we'd love to have you do the school.
Yeah, I don't mind.
Okay,
Yeah, I'm fine with that.
okay.
Try to read it with a straight face.
And what do you
It'll
want
be
to
the
do
first
then
time.
on the town side?
Well, I'm
Everything, no.
Do it all during.
No, we're gonna spend this, everybody's gonna have
No,
something to
no,
do.
I
Spend
mean,
the wealth.
I could take on Public Works, I think.
Okay,
I'm pretty informed on the, you know.
Stuart, you keep track of this, because I'm not making any notes,
Okay.
please.
Are you about to take notes?
I'm gonna have to. Yeah,
Clicking the pen.
yeah,
Thinking about it.
and PW,
You said Public Works.
yeah. What do you wanna do, Olivia?
Library.
You gotta do more than that, sorry.
I'll
It's
do
like $5.
library and, Parks and Rec.
You're getting the softballs, but okay. I asked you.
Well, I'll do it
Yeah.
either one.
Well, let's see what's
Which
left.
one do you want me to do?
Davis, what do you wanna do?
You wanna see the rest?
I was thinking I would do admin, but that's a short one, so I'm open to suggestions for a second.
Police, fire. What else?
Police,
Get a ride on the
fire,
truck.
Yeah.
library, sewer, admin.
Yeah, no, Olivia's doing library and Parks and Rec.
Do you want me to do
So
police?
I could do
instead of-
admin, police, and fire, but we can't forget that we have 2 missing members that can be voluntold.
Yeah, well, let's see. I want to assign today, and then we can
Okay, let's get
reassign
those.
if somebody wants to do it. So what do you want to do?
Um,
Admin
put
and
me
fire?
on admin, police, and fire.
Well, why don't we split those up?
Okay.
So we'll put you, I'll do police,
It's like the opposite of you.
because I wear some figures. Okay,
So what are you doing?
As far as I'm hearing,
Admin.
admin and fire.
good. So what
What's
we'll,
left, sewer? I mean, that's the easiest one.
Right.
yeah.
I don't mind doing that one too,
Okay,
but, you know.
yeah, why don't we give you sewer too?
Yeah.
Okay.
You're taking sewer too?
Yep.
Joanne, will you?
And that's it.
Will you send out the assignments and see if anybody else wants to do something that people are missing, and we can rearrange? So what it would be is a short presentation, I've said short.
Yep.
Just to run through some of our thinking in any big points. You don't need to, they've heard, no. Most of the planning board members have heard this, there's some that are new, so it takes a little explanation. I'm hoping Tim will make a general presentation of what the CIP program is about, and then we do and then somebody, I'm hoping on the planning board, will make a motion to adopt, just like we did, to adopt the plan.
So it's just to go over either,
Yeah, you
depending
know,
on how they want it. Do you want a
yeah,
summary, do you want
yeah,
by
I do
line?
it, so I wouldn't go item by item, bunch of them, big items.
Yep.
Because they have it in front of them, they can read.
Okay, okay.
So, vehicles, explain some of the theory behind routine replacement. And, we gotta go out to Public Works a little bit, but you don't need to be there, because they can look at it.
Yeah.
Okay? Your chance to share in the glory of the CIP committee. Okay.
Glory feels like a strong word.
It is. Seeing that I have no further business, anybody
Just
join?
as a reminder, that meeting is September 10th
And it's at 7,
o'clock
yeah.
in this room.
Yeah, okay. Olivia, we move to adjourn?
I do. I have a quick question before we adjourn though.
Okay.
So for the presentations, do we do all the years that are shown on the matrix?
What we tend to
or
do is
just the
focus
first
on
couple?
the first couple, and then
Okay.
point out any big items
Ones.
in the
Okay.
more distant years that they should know about. But not routine, there's routine replacement, we don't have to.
Okay, then I make a move to wrap it up.
Second, wrap it up.
So wrapping up, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstentions, motion carries. Thank you. This is